and it's time for everybody's favorite Facts Are Your Friends. Let's do it. Managers impact employee mental health more than therapists or their spouse. That's the title of this new article here. Whoa. That's all I'm saying. Whoa. If this is true, this is shapeshifter for most of us, because all of the data suggests that the most important decision a person makes is who they marry. A great partnership with your spouse ends up in a much larger net worth. It ends up in longer life. It ends up in better health, better happiness. All these metrics go this way. And a bad spouse, somebody who you're always at war with, leads to negative metrics. And so I've always told young people, always, the most important decision is not where you go to college, not what you major in. It's who you decide to spend the rest of your life with. And so when an article comes out that says managers impact employees' mental health more than their spouse or partner or more than their therapist, we got to stop that bus and back that thing up. All right, so here's what it says. The Workforce Institute at UKG surveyed 3,400 people across 10 countries to find out the role managers play in influencing their staffers' state of mind. In fact, managers impact workers' mental health more than both doctors and therapists, according to the study. Now, really quick, I'm going to give you a 0.02 second lesson on reading articles. This, in big, bold letters, here's what the title of this article is. Managers impact employees' mental health more than therapists and as much as a spouse or partner. If you read it really quick, it jumbles it all together. So it says it's about as much as a spouse or partner, okay? Now, so make sure that the title matches what you're actually reading down here. Those are often disconnected because they want you to click on the title and then you read it and it's like, well, maybe not. But that's not here. It's not surprising that 60% of those surveys said that their job is the biggest factor influencing their mental health. Now, I want to push back on that for a second. Here's in real quick. We've created a planet, a universe, a state of being where all of us owe people money. We're all in debt, whether it's student loans, whether it's car loans, whether it's housing, whether it's our rent, whatever, we all owe people money. And we're the loneliest generation in human history. We have nobody. We got nobody. We have old high school friends that we have long text threads full of memes with. That's it. We have a couple of college buddies who are in your sorority or fraternity or whatever group you paid to be friends with or on old sports teams or whatever. Maybe you got a couple people from your high school youth group. We're lonely. And we've pulled the string. We've pulled the tether on stories that unite cultures, otherwise known as religions. We're all like, we're too smart for that stuff now. That's not real. And what we have are exhausted, lonely, untethered people who have one common place left, the workplace. And so now the workplace is having to teach us about issues of diversity, about sex ed, because we didn't get that at home. We didn't get that at school. They're having to teach us, they have to provide us health care. They have to provide us purpose. They have to provide us paycheck. You see how the workplace now is the baseline for all humanity. It's the last great line of defense. And so when people say my job is the source of my mental health issue, I don't think so. I think we've created a world where the only connecting feature left is work. It's the only thing we got left that defines us as a community, as a group of people. It's the only place I see humans anymore. And if you work remotely, God help you, man. All you see is toddlers and your spouse, and jeez. So I'll just move on. A whopping 64% of respondents said that work negatively impacts their well-being. It's wild. Work should be the thing that gives you purpose and meaning and feels so right. And then you go home. And then you go connect with your friends. And then you go connect with your faith community, or you go do your acts of service, etc. Coincidentally, there's a direct correlation between feeling unable to balance work and home priorities with poor mental health. So now you see what's happening here. We've created unstable, wildly out of balance lives, and then we blame work for it. Over 80% of employees worldwide and 70% of workers in the US would take a pay cut for a job that better supports their mental wellness. What I want people to do is to actually sit down and write down on a piece of paper, what is mental wellness for me? What would that actually mean? Time with friends? Fun? If it's video game time and doing nothing time and laying around time, I'm going to tell you that's not mental health. That's numbing behavior. That's opposite of mental health. If it's time to go on adventures and time to go hiking and time to go hunting and time to do painting or whatever, play music, that now we're getting into building a life worth living. The overwhelming majority of HRs, continue in the article, and C-suite leaders think their workplace has a positive impact on worker mental health. But half of the employees agree. And I'll tell you this, I've seen this almost every single place I've ever worked, ever consulted. And we've seen this in the data over the last 25 to 50 years. The disconnect between mid managers and lower, entry-level workers up through middle management, and that could be a six-figure job as a middle manager, and the execs. Those that can afford all of the yoga classes and the special stuff and the massages, and they're not worried about, I can't afford eggs, right? There's a gap between, here's the world we're creating. I once was at a place where the boss was like, we don't have politics here where we're at this workplace. And I laughed and said, oh, yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. And they're like, no, we don't. We don't do politics here. I was like, oh, for sure you do. For sure. We don't have a dress code here. You for sure have a dress code here, right? So there's a disconnect between the world that senior execs think they've created and the world being experienced by others. And the easy thing, execs, I'm talking to you, is to say, I don't care. They got to get in line. Cool. And what they're telling you is they're falling apart. They're falling apart. So I'm talking to both the employees and the leaders here. The article goes on to say how managers can influence their workers' mental health for the better. And I actually agree with all of the points here. I think they're great. First one is leaders need to avoid burying their heads in the sand and instead make mental health a global topic of discussion within their teams. Yes. Start having conversations. Let people know that if they're not okay or they're not well, here's where resources are. Here's what my expectations are for how you need to take care of yourself. Here's where you can go. And leaders, make no mistake, having somebody who's struggling with depression, struggling with anxiety, show up every day is going to decrease performance individually and with your whole team. You're much better off taking care of people. Now, they also have to get their work done. That's real. You may have to split people's jobs up while people are getting healthier, getting whole. All that stuff's true. But you got to stop burying your heads about it. You got to start talking about it. This can be, let's see here. It could be increased awareness or access to available resources. There can be surveys that are anonymous just to get a pulse on what's going on in the company. I think those are super helpful. Sometimes people use those to lob grenades. They do. But if you get enough grenades, at some point you realize you're under attack and you didn't know it. Also suggest that managers should be open about their own personal struggles with mental health and relationships to destigmatize the topic. When any leader across the country asks me, how can I best support my staff, my team, because they're struggling with anxiety, they're struggling with depression, they're struggling with all these things, the first thing I always tell the leaders is you call a meeting and let them know that you're going to a counselor, that you are taking a little bit of time to go get well, that you and your spouse are going to see a marriage counselor. Go do that. Lead by example. You go first. And the whole organization will collectively exhale. And yes, your shareholders can use that against you. They can weaponize it. Your bosses, the board members of whatever organization can be like, ooh, so-and-so's struggling. But yes, they can do that. And now you know how your employees feel. Now you know. One last thing here. Managers should be encouraging workers to take more time off work. Use your vacation. This happens in two ways. Managers, turn your phones off. One of the things I love about working at Ramsey Solutions is, Dave Ramsey will just send emails off, but they don't come until 6 a.m. All the execs here have fixed their email account. So when they send emails after a certain time, it doesn't end up in our email boxes until the morning, because they found out they were sending an email just off the top of their head, like, hey, I want to see some numbers on this thing at 10 o'clock. And then suddenly an employee was reading it at 10, and they were up till 4 a.m. trying to find these numbers and unable to sleep and stressing. And that was not the intention of the email at all, not even close. And so there's little things like that. And then there's bigger things like an incentive. If you use all your vacation, I'll give you 2 more days, because the data says people who use their vacation make your company more money. They make your company more money. And I used to be really guilty, leaders. When I had a whole bunch of direct reports, I would tell them, you need to take some time off. You need to take some time off. But they had these big projects. And so I was actually stressing them out more, because now I was giving them time off was becoming a job requirement, a responsibility. So I might have to find people to help with those projects and say, hey, you got to get out of here. You got to delegate this project to 2 other people. I know they can get it done. Or we have to create a world where we can delegate each other's projects, because you got to get it. You got to take a break. All this to say, when it comes to work and mental health, we've created worlds, very unhealthy worlds that our bodies can't exist in, and we're blaming work for that. And I think that's ridiculous. And leaders, we have to understand that there's such a gap between us and entry-level employees. We have to remember what that was like, and we think we remember, but we're wrong. We have to get in the busy, messy lives of the people who are taking these entry-level jobs, these mid-management jobs that are working their butts off, that have dreams and owe 6 figures in student loan debt, and they're trying to make it all work. And we have to remember what that was like. And we all think, I remember what that was like. We don't. The pressures are different now. They're just different. They're not better or worse. They're just different. And we got to listen. We got to listen. And leaders, we got to go first. That's why I'm always on this show telling people, I see a counselor. I see a marriage counselor. I got a coach. I'm not perfect either. And I do this for a living. Managers, leaders, we got to go first. Mental health at work. By the way, if your job is causing your mental health to collapse, you are worth something better than that. Create a life worth living and find other work. I can't find a job. There is no better time in human history than to find a new job than right now. Go do it.